like to suggest, and that is that near is better than far, small than big, and simple than complex. And in the footnotes, where even in the footnotes, the good people in Washington and Baltimore, Chicago, and New York will fight with us. We argue in 5-point type sans serif that personal is better than corporate and physical than abstract. They think they can get us, and they've also got indices and supplements at the end, and they're fighting us there too. But we have answers as well. Now, stepping out of the shadows of footnotes today, we have an event coming up for programmers in Chattanooga, brought to the city and brought to them by Chatech, which is a nonprofit organization here that has 90 member companies in the tech-related and tech-enabled field. And the event is on a Friday, a good day for an event like that, all day, July 28th, at the Chattanooga Convention Center. And here to tell us about it is Carla Askonas, who oversees Chatech. Carla, what's on the agenda for my listener and others?
Well, the Scenic City Summit, as you said, is a one-day developers conference sponsored by Chatech, the Chattanooga Technology Council, and it's an opportunity to provide local education, local networking for all the many people who work in programming and coding and software development. We include a wide variety of topics. This is just the second year for Scenic City Summit. Last year we started off with a modest program at UTC. This year we've moved to the Convention Center and expanded the program to 30 speakers, 30 talks on a variety of languages and software types.
Now, what kind of industries are going to be served by the speakers at this event? Are they particular to banking, let's say, or
really
retail?
All industry sectors are served by it because the languages are used by so many different kinds of industries. They're the background, the things that make everybody's computer programs and websites work. It's not necessarily related to one specific industry. So we have Chatech is sponsoring it. We have a planning committee of volunteers, all of whom are developers, and they're the ones who go out and find the speakers. They know the topics that are of interest. They know what the current issues are that their peers want to learn about. So all of our topics are really focused on what people who are doing programming want to know now.
Well, with us to tell some of the details about these languages is Brandon Schwartz. Brandon is an organizing member of this event, and works for TVA. He is a developer of customized. You're a developer of customized platforms, is that right?
Yes, that's one of the things that I've done recently throughout my career.
Who are you and what you do, and why should my listener care about your event, Brandon Schwartz?
So I have been in Chattanooga for about 10 years, worked in a number of different programming roles here in town. Most recently, been working at TVA, working on things that support transmission, keeping the lights on, that sort of thing. And the reason that your listener would probably care about the event, if your listener's a programmer, obviously there'd be topics of interest, things with the newest release of the Microsoft ASP.NET framework, JavaScript, which drives a number of different websites, a lot of things on the front end. Pretty much anything you see is powered by JavaScript lately. And for a non-programmer, a lot of businesses, as Carla said, make use of different programming languages, different technologies. So
such as
ASP.NET, JavaScript, Elixir, a lot of different frameworks for deploying software and sort of making that process more efficient. Any number of things.
Well, the listener doesn't ever get baby talk on our show here. Brandon, tell my listener, for example, how a software is enabled. Someone's written a software for a function, and what do these developers do to make it somehow go into action? Because that's what you just mentioned. Give an example of what you're talking about.
Right. Well, for example, there are Docker containers that a lot of organizations are working with that basically allow a program to be packaged up along with all of its settings, all the language specific things, whether it's .NET, JavaScript, Rust, you name it. And rather than taking the time to configure something every single time a new release comes out, a Docker container can be prepared and pushed out to the cloud or out to a server.
That's called a Docker container. What does that mean?
Yes. Docker is sort of a method for packaging up an application so that instead of moving an individual file or one after another, deploying something new over several hours, once you create basically an image of what the operating system looks like, what your code looks like, you can duplicate that a number of times and stand up an application in minutes, basically like turning on or off your computer.
And before this Docker method came about, what happened? How long did things take to start?
Depending on the application, it could take a long time to deploy. It could be
like 2 days or 3 days.
It could be as long as multiple days for very complicated
just opening up a new software would take several days. Is that what you're saying?
For a very complex website or very customized software, it could.
What would be an example of a complex website or something that's very, very complex and detailed?
For instance, healthcare.gov, something that has a number of interactions with different data sources. For that matter, any insurance company website or something very complex that I've worked with would be transportation software, managing, for instance, trucking or getting managing logistics of getting things from one place to another. A lot of the business rules involved in that can make for some very complex software.
So let's say the trucking example, we have Covenant Transport here. We have Access America, which was bought by Coyote Systems, again, a trucking business. Why are its systems complex? You have the trucks themselves, you have the employees, you have the manifest of the goods, you have the storage, right? You have to control who gets the payments, the schedules of the vehicles, the schedules of the drivers.
Exactly.
Fuel demands. That's say more about why that's so complex. Why does it all have to work together? Can't you have a separate payment system, a separate scheduling system? Why all together?
Well, one of the things that you mentioned that I'll go back to was fuel management, and every single thing that you mentioned is an important piece of that puzzle in transportation. The fuel tax laws, as they apply to trucking, are complex enough that as a human to try to keep track of everything would be intensely time consuming. And to your point of why would those things be better unified across one system rather than keeping them in separate pieces of software, it eliminates a lot of human effort, redundancy, keeping all of those things in sync. And you don't necessarily have to have them all in one system if all of the systems can communicate with each other and share the data that they need. And also, when you're eliminating redundancy and the human effort to keep those things connected, you're also eliminating the possibility of human error.
This is David Tulis. We're talking with Brandon Schwartz, who is organizing the Chatech conference being held here in Chattanooga on the 28th. There will be as many as 300 experts, programmers, developers in the city, 200 are registered thus far. And the question I have, Brandon, on the point of centralization, we've been discussing, and we analyze often on our program, the dangers of centralization, because if you have everything centralized, you lose, you create a monoculture. There's no feedback. There's no maybe awareness of scale. There are problems with centralization. Is that not true in computing?
Well, it is,
and the complexity drag factor.
Absolutely. And to that point, one of the trends in computing recently is this concept of microservices, where there's a large task or there are some complex business requirements that you have to meet, but those are broken down into smaller programs, each with very simple goals that are easier to maintain. And then if those communicate between each other for the data that they need, you sort of break down that issue of having this gigantic monolith that you then have.
Well, the programmers who are coming on the 28th to the conference, Brandon Schwartz, are they working in the direction of centralizing systems, or are they some, perhaps, or all, or many, in the effort of decentralizing gigantic balls of data and service?
For many of the speakers that I know, the topics they're speaking on and the work they're doing, the trend seems to be decentralization, breaking things up into reusable components. We have a couple of talks actually talking about that component trend, specifically in JavaScript, and sort of the best practices around simplifying that, getting away from, as you said, the monoculture, and moving more toward a distributed architecture that scales a little bit more easily.
Right. So the internet has brought us many things that are distributed. For example, the Airbnb story in Chattanooga is about the sharing economy, distributing the services of overnight stays and visitors to the city. The competition, of course, is high capitally intensive centralized buildings and businesses, the hotel motel industry. So diversified economies are the future, right? That's nothing new. And so there's a mix of centralization among these programmers, getting things all on the same screen, right? Everything on the same screen, and you can control everything from one keyboard effectively. And there's a great strength in that and efficiency in that. But then is the problem that things don't work when they're too central technology, or how do you know there's a problem with centralization? Is there a problem there that the diversifying trend is solving? Brandon Schwartz?
Well, in some cases, yes, and I would say that very much depends on your problem domain or what you're trying to solve. There are some cases where, yes, centralization is a good thing, but when you're trying to maintain one of those larger systems or trying to quickly debug or introduce a new feature, the trend is to think that it is easier to change a small piece that's interconnected with a whole and can scale very well from 10 users today to 1,000 tomorrow, 1 million next month, than it is to dig into this large pile of code and data and figure out where the thing you want to change or where the thing you want to fix is.
If it's all one big tape ball, then fixing one thing in the middle is very complicated because it can have invisible ramifications on the other parts.
Exactly. And side effects are one of the things that programmers in just about any industry sort of battle. And we do have actually a couple of talks around best practices in addressing those side effects, eliminating them, doing code reviews to make sure that whatever you're dealing with, whether it be a monolith or a number of different individual pieces, it's architected in such a way that you never run into that problem. That's the goal.
This is David Tulis. We're talking with Brandon Schwartz about an upcoming programming event here in Chattanooga, sponsored by Chatech. Carla Askonas is overseeing that nonprofit organization. It's a business group. The event will be held at the Chattanooga Convention Center on the 28th of July. That's a Friday, and it's called the Scenic City Summit. Is that right, Carla?
Yes, it's called the Scenic City Summit. And really, David, the purpose is to bring together all kinds of developers so that people who are working on all kinds of issues in all kinds of environments, whether they're working for a big company or whether they're working on their own and providing services to small businesses, we want everybody to know that this conference is for them. One of the benefits is the opportunity to be exposed to a wide variety of ideas. Some people spend part of the most part of their professional life using one or two kinds of software or focusing their effort in that way. And this is an opportunity to not only get some more information about how you might want to use that efficiently or in a new way, but also to be exposed to other emerging technology and emerging languages so that you have an opportunity to be exposed to a wide variety of ideas.
Well, can you be specific? Give an example of someone in a line of business and what might be coming to serve him in the future that might be available or on display at the coming.
I need for Brandon to step in and do that.
Okay.
Okay. So one of the things that we have, one topic we have a couple of talks on is the new ASP.NET Core framework. which a lot of people here in Chattanooga specifically and throughout the region work in organizations that use the .NET framework from Microsoft, which has been around for 15 plus years. .NET Core is sort of a reimagining, a reinvention. It breaks with the 15-year-old .NET framework, and it is now cross-platform and open source. So where you couldn't run .NET on a Mac or on a Linux environment and you were working exclusively on a Windows server, the new framework is lighter weight and out of the box and open source. Of course, you can go take a look at the code that drives the framework. And that opens up a number of opportunities for anyone who wants to make that move, who's been used to working with .NET in whatever industry.
Now, Brandon Schwartz, does my small business listener have a possible interest in this conference, and how might his needs as a small operator with maybe fewer than 10 employees, let's say, have in coming to your event on the 28th of July?
Well, with a small organization, fewer than 10 employees, a listener who has a business that makes use of any kind of custom computer programs or a website, I think the event would be especially beneficial because we have a number of different topics and a number of different programming languages that are going to be covered. So it's possible, particularly in a small organization, you'd attend on a Friday, learn something useful, or pick up a new concept and go to work on Monday.
We have a call. Caller David Tulis, you're talking with Brandon Schwartz and Carla Askonas of Chatech. What's on your mind?
What is being done by programmers to prevent government snoops? Like they spend how many millions of dollars to hack into an iPhone. So we business people can protect our private information. And individuals without businesses can protect their information. What are programmers doing to prevent government snoops and other snoops that would steal their information for their own purposes? Because I remember back in the 90s where I got a virus in one of my computers that was called the Tweety Bird virus, and it started deleting my entire hard drive, and it cost me thousands of dollars to get recovered. But is there anything being done by them so the NSA and the rest of the government perverts?
So to that point, I would say that there's an entire subfield in programming computer science around encryption and security. And there are a lot of best practices around not only keeping the data secure, but redundancy, so that when you're working in an organization, if something would happen and one of your programs is compromised, you can take that offline and bring a fresh copy online and keep things working.
We're going to hear now again for a moment from Carla Askonas from Chatech. Carla, give my listener who's just joining us a quick rundown of what's happening on the 28th of July, an all-day event here in Chattanooga.
It's a developers conference. It's for people who are involved in all kinds of software development, programming, coding, and it offers 30 talks. Some of them are oriented toward novices. Some of them are oriented toward experts, and everything in between, because we want everybody who's involved in coding to know that there's something there for them. If you're a small business and you don't have in-house staff who does this, you're probably contracting with somebody to provide those services, and you want to know that they are getting updated, that they are in the know, that they talk to other coders to get new ideas and new approaches to things. So really, it's a networking, updating.
So you're saying that that person should be urged by the listener to attend the event.
Absolutely. And
the listener might not.
Right. If the listener doesn't need to get updated in the programming languages and new techniques, probably somebody that they contract with or do business with would really benefit from that. So the best way to get information out is to go to sceniccitysummit.com, and all the information, the list of speakers, the schedule, the topics that the speakers are addressing are all listed at sceniccitysummit.com. People can register there. A whole day event, including lunch, is only $75. You don't have to travel out of town, but we're bringing some local speakers and some out-of-town speakers here.
Brandon Schwartz, thank you, and Carla Askonas, thank you. This is David Tulis. We are at Nooga Radio, AM 440 and FM 92.7. The event is Scenic City Summit. Again, that's sceniccity.com. And it's for programmers. Now, you're not a programmer, but you hire a man who is. You need to give him a quick call and say, are you current on your knowledge of your field? Well, no? Okay, go to the conference. It's sponsored by Chatech. ScenicCitySummit.com is the address. Have him go. David Tulis.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader, Nooga Radio, AM